What's up, everybody? This is Kenny Cummings here of Chilling with Kenny C, and I'm very excited to be joined with my guest. He's been a friend of mine on Facebook. He is a recording artist. He is part of a band called EV, a very talented rock pop band that's in the Kentucky and Tennessee area. You can check out their music at evofficialmusic.bandcamp.com. And joining me at this time is Casey Stroud. He's with me right now. How's it going, man?
Sup, man? I'm glad to be here. Um, it's been it's been a long journey, in music. And I'm really grateful, that I've been able to, you know, uh, be able to express myself in this way. Um, and I'm still working on music. To this day, writing songs. I've just been taking my time lately, Um, on top of that, life has kind of pulled me in some other directions, because I'm also involved now with a game development company. And so I've been doing a lot of, as far as music goes, a lot of soundtrack work as well. Um, so
That's awesome, man. So we've been chatting with each other uh for quite some time. And of course I've first heard of you through mutual friends, most notably in the Louisville music scene. And I started to listen to um, your band's music during the pandemic, listen to some EV tunes. And and when I started listening to them, I was very pleased with what I heard. Um, Very incredible tunes that EV has. Very talented band, talented music, a lot of good substance in the music that y'all present. So I feel like songs like you guys, y'all definitely bring something different and um, something that separates yourselves from everybody else. So I definitely enjoy some of the music that y'all put out, including the Upload record, which came out 2021. So
yeah, it's the most
uh,
recent one.
yeah, that's definitely the recent one. So talk about how did EV became a band? How did y'all guys got together?
Um, it was always meant to be a band, but I'm the only member actually.
Oh,
Um, yeah, but I wanted to present it like a band, sort of like Tame Impala or Nine Inch Nails.
yeah,
So, you know, and I wanted it to sound like it came from a band, but really just all the music comes from me. Um, and I never really, I only ever performed live once in Nashville. Um, and that was years ago. It's mostly been a studio based project. I began it while I was attending Morehead State University back in 2016 was when I started. Prior to that, I had been producing house music, like electronic dance music, what I'd always been into rock and roll, from the time I was a little kid, and I loved music from the 60s, like the Beatles, the Beach Boys, the Kinks, early Who kind of stuff. Early Bee Gees a little bit, like that, the first album, Um, but like and I tried in high school a few times to start bands, and I didn't have a car, I couldn't drive anywhere. I was like 15, So it was hard to like, get together and play with people. And most of my other friends, they weren't musicians. They had other interests, so it was hard to at first, but by the time I got to college, I got plugged in sort of into this music scene. Because as a convergent media major, as soon as I got into Trailblazer, well, there's Tanner and Patrick from Wicked Peace there, and so that's how I got to know those guys. And I was inspired by what they were doing. They would, I'm not sure if they heard my stuff or but they would, I'd show them, I'd play them some songs, and they'd be like, "Oh, that's all right," And then by the time I got into the sort of the rock ensemble, that's where I met the Bedford Boys and you know um, some of the Bird Law guys, and Casey Glover and Daria Densenko, and so many other great people, Peyton Stewart, so that was sort of the scene that I was a part of back then, and so I tried to be a little different from that, you know being from Eastern Kentucky, I never wanted to be like the cowboy guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I, I never wanted to be a country singer, but that's what they act like, that, well, you're not going to succeed if you unless you do this type of music. I wanted to bring something different, a little more visceral, a little more psychedelic, but also something very punk rock, and that's sort of like the do-it-yourself ethos. Everything I did was self-produced and self-released. Um, and so I tried to, keep in line with that, and that's sort of how I got started. Um,
yeah, man. That's awesome. Um, anyone that's able to pull off what you doing, producing, working on the instruments, the vocals, just everything, man, major props to you for doing that. And yeah, and when I first heard the music, I initially thought it was just you, multiple guys. But this is just all you, like you doing everything. Uh, so that's impressive. Um, that that you did that. Um, so yeah, I enjoy psychedelic. I enjoyed the punk, the rock. I guess that takes me back to the TRL days. I mean, the TRL days, watching these different songs, and and was gravitated towards it, I guess, and then I started listening to new metal. I listened to rock and punk and alternative.
yeah,
I and those days, like so. It, that was like 2000s, I'm guessing, no, 1990s and 2000s of sorts. But
yeah.
yeah, that
My
that
memories of
yeah,
MTV. I didn't watch a lot of TRL. I was just a kid. I was watching SpongeBob. But I'll tell you what my earliest memories of MTV are. I was because my mom, she used to watch MTV religiously when I was like a toddler, in the late 90s. I was born in 97. And so, my earliest memories of music are music videos, particularly like, Bittersweet Symphony by The Verve, Beautiful Day by U2, Hit Me Baby One More Time, Britney Spears, um, and also Californication, Red Hot Chili Peppers, So all these just different music videos would come on, that and Beavis and Butthead, So that, those are my earliest memories of MTV. And then when I was a kid, I remember shows like Punk'd and the Osbournes and stuff. But
yeah,
by the time TRL was on, I'm playing outside or something, Um, but you know, for a lot of what I was doing, uh, a lot of that was inspired, by just music from the 60s. But a lot of what I did, in being able to produce my albums, I utilized, drum machines. I utilized synthesizers and sequencing. It was sort of like, how do you make a rock record in the same way that people make like hip hop, or the same way people make dance music? Because like when I was it was 2012. I was a freshman in high school, and I was going to Boyd County High School back then, and I heard Homework by Daft Punk for the very first time, and that's when it dawned on me. I had this epiphany that like I didn't need to be in a band to make music. I could do it myself, and I could do it at home if I could just learn how to utilize that kind of technology. Um, because prior to that, I just felt like, well, I need other people to make the kind of sounds I want to make. So to have that in my life at that moment was like, that was a turning point for me creatively, that allowed me to kind of begin to learn how to produce. Um, so,
Yeah,
and
absolutely,
then,
man.
um, of course, like, prior to getting into Daft Punk, one of my biggest musical heroes is Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys, and he wrote most of the Beach Boys hits with Mike Love or various other uh, songwriters who would give him lyrics, but he produced every record. Like even the ones he wasn't credited for producing, he basically arranged and produced, himself. Uh, people, sometimes I think people, maybe people overplay the Brian Wilson as a genius thing, but I believe he is and was. Um, and you know, I mean, you don't make something like Good Vibrations or California Girls without it there being something, you know, magnificent behind that. Um, so, you know, I always wanted to be like that. I wanted to be cool like Dennis, but be prolific the way Brian Wilson or Lennon and McCartney were.
Oh yeah, Brian Wilson, very, very special um, for what he was able to do with the Beach Boys. And I was listening to their music at a young age. My dad, be in his office, he plays all sorts of music. He played Meatloaf. He plays Rolling Stones. He played Motown music, obviously. And then he played some Beach Boys. I'm like 6, 7 years old in the office. Like you know how kids are, like be listening to music and like dad or mom, like what you listening to? I said the Beach Boys, son. You may not know them now, but you will when you get older and you understand and you know that they're an awesome band.
Oh
So
yeah.
I was 6 years old when he told me that. So I'm in my teens, and I said, "Oh, I'm gonna go listen to some Beach Boys. Let teenage Kenny listen to Beach Boys and try to feel what my dad was feeling." And
I
I was
mean,
like, "Yeah, yeah,
yeah. That's
timeless
the
music."
that's the thing about their music. I mean, there's this unbridled youthful joy in the Beach Boys music, but then there's also this melancholy, you know. It's like it's and it's just that dichotomy is what makes that music, as I think, as timeless as it is. Because it's like on one hand, yeah, you got like Surfing USA or Fun Fun Fun, but then on the other hand, you got like songs like God Only Knows, or Don't Talk, Put Your Head on My Shoulder, or some of the Smile stuff like The Old Master Painter, You Are My Sunshine. Like that one is like that one hits me hard. Or Wonderful. Like that's another amazing song. Um, you know, On my records, I tried to mostly just try to get sort of sonic concepts, I don't know if I could call really any of my album, except for maybe Post College Depression. That one's a concept album. Plus Minus is a concept album. But the other ones, I, I wouldn't say they're concepts in the sense of like it's about this one thing, but concept in a broader term, like there's a certain sound I'm trying to capture with every song to be on this one record. That it all feels like it's in one special place or it's taking you somewhere, you know. Uh, that like that's what I was going for with colors and shapes and mellow out and upload. That there are different rooms you can go in, or different kind of like worlds or something, but you know and I listen back to like the first two albums and I think, well, gee, I, those those mixes were, definitely, I could do so much better today. But some people have told me they really like the first two albums because they like the lo-fi kind of aspect to it, you know. But then there's some people who tell me like their favorite albums mellow out, or they like the Kentucky EP, which that was, I thought, pretty kind of lo-fi, and me trying to get sort of into the roots of being from Kentucky, and here I am musically trying to, for the most part, get away from the whole sort of country aspect, but there I leaned into it a little bit. But I wasn't trying to be like a cowboy. I was trying to be like Leonard Skinner a little bit. But Bedford, those guys captured that way better than me. Um, I kind of sort of, I like to branch out and experiment and try new things, but there's a certain lane that I do consciously somewhat stay in when I uh, write songs and produce them.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I definitely grown to appreciate some of those projects because of the lo-fi. I definitely appreciate the concept projects as well, especially just take you on a journey, song for song, and just hearing word for word, the thought process of going into these songs, and it's very intriguing. Um, and I've always admired your work um, for these last 7 years that you've been putting out tunes, and um, sometimes like I'll be in a dark place or whatever, and then I put some EV on, and chills me, calms me down a bit, puts me at ease. Music
That means a lot to me.
and music is a lot of things to me. It can also be an escape from whatever you was feeling, for whatever you was going through at the time.
I was
Um,
I was in a
so
very dark place when I made a lot of those records. I was not happy back then, but I always see music as, I believe music is a gift from God, and I think God, it ran in my family. My dad plays guitar, my uncle Chester plays, my cousins play music, they're sing, and so my mama Jessie, she's the one who put that music gene in the family. And so, yeah, while there's a biological aspect to it in that way, I still believe that like God gave us all a gift. And so, I wanted to use my gifts in a way that was meaningful. So if it helped, if my music really did help you through some stuff, I'm glad that makes me really overjoyed to hear that. I hope it does that for other people as well. It got me through some bad times. It was therapy for me to make a lot of those records because I mean, after I graduated from Morehead State, I had a rough go of it. I had a lot of problems at home that I was dealing with that I'm not going to go into here, but and I had to move to Michigan for, to get away from some of that stuff. And when I was there, that's when I started to get more into like Motown and Jay Dilla and things like that. I was listening to a lot of Donuts and some of that stuff, And of course, I always loved the Stooges, and they're from like Iggy Pop's, I think, from Ipsy, and I used to go buy weed there because it's legal up there. But, you know, um, back then, I was just at that point when I was living up there, that's when, I started going really hard with the video game company I've been doing. I've been running with my business partner and best friend, and we put out a game called Shatter that is on Steam right now, and it's
Mm,
actually on sale for the summer sale. And the soundtrack for the game is on Spotify under the name Casey Austin Stroud. It's my full name, but you can hear the whole entire soundtrack for the game on Spotify and on Apple Music, anywhere that's streaming. All my albums are on Spotify and Apple Music as well to stream now. But I'm glad that you plugged the Bandcamp, because like back then I couldn't afford to put all my music out on the streaming services, so I relied really heavily on Bandcamp. And anything I put out subsequently, whether it be the EV project or I start something new, I'm gonna put it out on Bandcamp. Don't get me wrong, Bandcamp is a wonderful place to release music and to discover other artists, even local to your area. Like Huntington, West Virginia, my friend Tyler turned me on to some of these local punk bands, and they're all seemingly produced by the same guy up there in around like the Huntington area. But there's a thriving punk scene up there, and I'm fascinated by them. So I can't remember the names of a lot of bands right now, but it's definitely worth looking into. Some of these bands that my friend Tyler showed me a few months back. Um, so I'm, all I've tried to do was just express what was in my soul and try to use the gifts God gave me to try to bring joy to myself and bring joy to other people. And when I wrote those albums and made up, and did all of these records, I wasn't thinking about like, are other people going to love this? I was thinking about like, what do I want to hear that's not on the radio, or what do I have to say? I used to not have anything to say on some of my earlier songs, but that's why I'm taking my time on these next upcoming albums. I've got two in the works. The eighth album is going to be a more of a synth kind of thing, very 80s kind of synth, thinking like Devo type of stuff, or some of that sort of like stuff, but or even into the modern day like Mystery Skulls, uh, or Dayglow, things like that. But and then the ninth album is gonna be, back to basics rock and roll, with some psychedelia in it, and some punk in it, and you know, just you know, where I'm living now is very close to the Mississippi Delta. Memphis is about an hour away. Muscle Shoals is about an hour the other way. And there's a vibe to the area, I feel like where I live is where rock and roll lives. And they're like I go outside and I hear it in the trees and stuff.
yeah,
Like
absolutely, man.
when the wind blows, man, it rocks.
Yeah, well said, man. Everybody go check out EV on all the streaming platforms. Check out that Shatter game and check out that soundtrack. The soundtrack is on the streaming platforms as well. I noticed the Shatter on your Facebook header.
Yep.
So
It's
now
the
now I
game.
know. So yeah, now I know what that is. So
Yeah, it's if you
uh
like Final Fantasy or type RPGs, it's a 40-hour game. It's a 2D RPG, but it's got a great story, and I'd like to think the soundtrack's pretty good, and it might be a slow start in the beginning, but once you get about, 5 hours in, it picks up. And I think, anybody who plays that game is going to have a lot of fun with it. So, it's definitely worth picking up on Steam and checking out, just for the game that it is.
yeah, so yeah, for all the Final Fantasy fans, man, go check that out. Uh support this game, support the soundtrack. So Casey, man, this interview feels like it's been years in the making.
It was,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, but I'm glad we got it to happen. I'm glad I got to chat with you. Thank you so much for your time for to doing this interview with me just days before the holiday. I guess holiday extended
yeah.
weekend since it's on a Thursday
Hmm. Oh
of
yeah.
this week. So but great
Four-day
chatting with
weekend.
you. Yeah. So but thank you man for the chat and I'm looking forward to your upcoming new music.
Thank you
So
for
yeah,
having me. Thank you for
great.
having me. And all I can say is stay tuned, because I'm still not done.
Well, yeah, absolutely, man. He's got more, man. So he gonna bring it to y'all. Y'all just got him right. The beauty of music is that you know it's like going to that restaurant. It's like going getting that chef, getting something to cook. It takes time, no rush. It just gotta make sure it's on point. You know what I'm saying? So
Got to have the right ingredients.
right there, got the ingredients, gotta have the warm, make sure it's not too high, not too low, just right where it needs to be. Uh so be on the lookout for new music for EV and Casey. He's coming. Um thank you again, man. Continue um happiness and and to everything that goes your way and thanks again for your time, man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. I hope to come back again.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that once the new music come out for sure.
Oh, for sure. I'd love that.
Right. So yeah, so definitely dive in once the new music come out. So everyone that's listening, thank y'all for tuning in. This is Chilling with Kenny C for TMV Cafe. Enjoy the holiday uh, weekend and be safe. Please do not do anything stupid with the fireworks. Don't lose your fingers or anything like that. Don't be that person. I've read stories about people doing that, and don't be another statistic of that this upcoming weekend. Be safe, and you all enjoy your holiday weekend. That's Casey. I'm Kenny,
With everybody.
and happy Fourth. We signing out. All right.